a little bit different to the other courses. We're actually going to Hello, good morning. Can everyone hear me through their computer speakers? If you could just type into the chat area and let me know that you can hear me. Excellent. Right, I'm just allowing a few more seconds to allow everybody else to join and to be able to hear me. Okay, right. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to Mamut Academy. I know some of you have been on quite a few courses. The course today that we're going to be running through is Accounting Basics. So we're going to have a look at how the accounting actually works in Mamut Business Software. So let's have a look at the agenda items for today then. First of all, we're going to do something which will be a little bit different to the other courses. We're actually going to start off at the settings. So we're going to look at how can we set up all of the different settings surrounding the accounting. After we've looked at the settings, we'll look at VAT codes, control accounts, user settings, and things of that nature. We'll then have a look at the chart of accounts, how we can customize the chart of accounts. We'll then have a look at journal entry, and how we can use the journal entry screen to perform different tasks. We'll have a look at the customer and supplier ledgers. We'll talk about the period end, and of course we'll have a look at the bank reconciliation. So please do remember to make notes as we go through, as there are no physical notes actually given out as it's an online course. So, what we'll do is we'll move over to the software and have a look at how that all works. So if you bear with me, in just a second you'll be able to see my computer screen on your screen there. Okay, so what I've done is I have clicked into the focus area, Accounting, and we can see that the flow diagram is being displayed to us. And we can see that everything in accounting, if we look at the main middle bit here, which is financials, we can see that there are three things that post to financials, two of which we have looked at in other courses. We've got the sales order process, and we've got the purchase order process. So we've seen those in the other courses. But we have one further one, which is journal entry. So we'll be looking at that during this course. Those three things then filter through to financials, and from financials you can see we can view our debtors and creditors. Financials really is a way to look at transactions that we have already put through onto the system, so we don't enter information in from there, it's simply there to view information that has been put on previously. We've then got the period end and the year end, which perform those different tasks. So as I said, we're actually going to start off by looking at the settings for this module, the accounting module. So I'm going to click into the settings button at the top of this screen. You can of course click on that, or you can go to view and settings. It takes you to the same window. This window here, and we can see that we've got all of our different settings. We've got user settings and company settings, but right now we want to look at the accounting settings. So I'm clicking into accounting over here. Okay, so first of all, on this screen we are clicked into this tab called Periods, and this shows me my financial periods. Now, my financial year on this company that I'm using for this demonstration runs from January '09 to December '09. So we can see the different periods that are there. And what we can do is we can see the VAT periods that associate with our financial periods. We can change the VAT period if it doesn't line up exactly with the financial period by double-clicking on it and being able to edit these details to line up the VAT with the way that we do VAT in our business. Most people won't need to do that, but it does give you the flexibility in order to be able to do that. Leah has asked a question: can period numbers be changed with letters, i.e. January, February, March, etc.? No, they can't. They are just numbered 1 through to 12. So depending on when you start your year, month 1 will be the first month in your financial year. The next tab along is the Module Settings tab, and there are quite a few very important features here, so we'll take some time and actually go through each one of these in detail. So I'm going to actually start off with the one on the right, top right hand corner here, which is called Chart of Accounts, and this takes us into our actual chart of accounts. Now, what we are looking at the moment is a single account in our chart of accounts. The account number is 0005. The name of the account is Goodwill, and we can see that it's being analyzed as our intangible fixed assets. And if we want to view the entire list for our chart of accounts, we need to click into the little book button. So we click into that, and it shows us the list of our chart of accounts, and we can see that we have the entire chart of accounts here. So we can see that all the accounts that start with zeros are really asset accounts, or fixed asset accounts to be a bit more accurate. 1 accounts are then our other asset accounts, so our stock accounts, as well as our bank accounts, as well as our debtors accounts. The accounts that start with number 2 are our liability accounts, so we have our different creditors accounts, our liability accounts, our VAT liability, our PAYE, any loans, hire purchase, and things of that nature. 3 accounts are then our capital accounts, so we can see there are ordinary shares, etc. Scrolling down, we can see that our 4 accounts are then our sales accounts. Scrolling further down, we can see that our 5 accounts are our cost of sales accounts, our cost accounts. And then scrolling down further, we've then got 7, 8, and 9 accounts, which are all expense accounts. Okay, so that shows us how we can start to build our accounts list, or our chart of accounts. If I want to view a particular account and make changes, so for example, if I find my bank account, I can click into that, click OK, and then I can edit any one of those details. So maybe I want to actually call it the current account and not bank current account. So I can just save that, and now that is called the current account. Looking at my chart of accounts there, I may wish to create new accounts, and most of you will need to do this as you go through using the product. So I'm just having a look here. I'm going to create one underneath marketing and promotions and actually call it internet marketing, because I want to be able to analyze that separately. So what I actually need to do is to take a note of the next free number. So that would be 6205. So I click OK to that window, and in this window here I click on the new button and type in the number 6205. I click OK, and the new account is then created for me. I give it a name. So I'm going to call it Internet Marketing. I can choose the default VAT code as well. So I'm going to choose Purchase Standard. And down here I've then got the layout of accounts. So this is being analyzed in my overheads due to the actual number that I selected. Now it could be that it's automatically analyzing it in the wrong place. So you can actually go to this edit button over here and actually change the layout of accounts. So I can click into there and I can manually select where I would like this analyzed, so you can see that I can actually choose something more specific if I want. Now it happens to be that that one is fine, so I'm going to leave it under overhead. Under the tab Advanced, we've got a few different things here that we can specify. We can specify a ledger function if we were creating a control account. We can choose a default double entry nominal code if we want to try and save time later on whenever we use this. We can also mark it as a bank account or a petty cash account and mark it as bank reconciliation. Those two things need to be done in order to create a new bank account onto the system. So we'll create a bank account in just a moment, but this account is pretty okay the way that it is, this internet marketing account. So I'm going to click Save at the top, and that saves that account for me. Now, creating a bank account isn't really much harder. The only difference is that you need to remember that we need to tick those tick boxes which say bank reconciliation and marking it as a bank account. So again, I'm just having a look at my chart of accounts, and I'm going to find my bank account and find the next free number. So there's my current account. 1201 would be an appropriate number for the next account. 1201. So I'm going to click New 1201. Put that in. I can then put in the name of the account. So I'll just call it NatWest Bank account. It's being analyzed under deposits and cash, which is correct. I don't want a default VAT code on there, but under advanced I need to mark it as a bank account, and because I want to be able to perform a bank reconciliation on this account, I mark it as bank reconciliation as well. So I save that, and that is now saved into my chart of accounts. So basically you would go through and actually manipulate your chart of accounts to reflect that of your own business. You may want to be able to change names. You can change the numbers as well and move them around a little bit. And you can also delete any accounts that aren't being used or that haven't been used. If they have balances, obviously you won't be able to delete them. Different currencies, that's a very good question, Shelley. You can create accounts in different currencies. You can only do that in the product E5. I chose the same number. And you can see over here that we can actually choose the currency for it. So for example, if I want to set up a euro account, I can select that as a euro account. And I type in the name. It's being analyzed under cash and deposits, so click save. And we can now see that a euro bank account has now been created in that place. So Leah has asked a question. Can you link debtors to a currency account so that when the payment is received, it will automatically debit that account? Yes, you can. That's actually done from your customer's account itself, where you decide where it's going to be analysed and where the money is going to go into. It's not done from the accounting side of things. If you create an account, Chris has asked, do you have to state which account is to be used for the double entry? So Chris is talking about this feature over here where you can select the default double entry. You don't have to select that. The only things that you have to select are the ones that I've shown you. Now the other things around that, like the default double entry nominal code, can help save you time. It won't be necessary in all circumstances, but it's just designed there. Should you wish to use that, then you can use it. It works specifically for like the journal entry screen, really, which we'll be having a look at in a little while. Registration period numbers, Leah has just asked about again. What I said was that you cannot change the period numbers. They always stay as numbers relating to your periods. Period 1 being the first month of your financial year. It's just the way that the system works. It might be slightly different to what you're used to, but I think Leah, you said you were from MYOB. You will get used to the way that the system works. It does take a while. Okay, so any other questions on the chart of accounts or how to customize the chart of accounts? Create accounts, create new accounts, edit accounts, or delete accounts. Deleting accounts I haven't looked at, so let's just quickly have a look at that. So let me find an account that I would want to delete. So let's go to our expense accounts. So let's say, for example, we want to get rid of this printing account, 7500. It's fairly easy to delete. First of all, I click OK, and I'm looking at my printing account. As long as it hasn't been used, I click on delete. It asks me if I want to delete it, and it goes away and deletes it. To view activity on account for a particular period and drill down on transactions, we're actually going to have a look at that later. What we're looking at the moment are the settings to actually set up the chart of accounts, and we haven't really been putting too many transactions through. We'll do that a bit later on and then view them a bit later in financials. It's not done from this section. You can delete an account that has a zero balance and hasn't been used in this financial year. If it has a balance, you cannot delete it. If it doesn't have a balance and has been inactive for the last financial year, then you can delete it, but otherwise it won't allow you. Okay, so we set up the chart of accounts, and we had also set up a couple of bank accounts as well, one sterling, one euro. And what we need to do is we need to make sure that we can use those accounts in the relevant places. So when we're actually receiving payments and making payments, we should be able to use those accounts. So we need to tell the system that we want to use those. So we do that under this feature here, which is called default receipts stroke payment accounts. So let's click into there. We can see there that we've got our nominal codes. We've got my current account, my petty cash account, and my credit card account, and those are marked as their respective journal types. But I need to bring in my other two bank accounts. So I'm going to click on New. It brings in the chart of accounts. So I'm going to find my new bank account. So there's my NatWest bank account. That I'm going to mark as a bank payment receipt account, and then I want my Euro account as well, so I'm just going to go and find that too. There's my Euro account, and also mark that as a bank. Where are we? I'm going to mark that as a petty cash receipt account. Always. There we go, my bank payment receipt account. So that means that my two new accounts, my NatWest and Euro account, I can actually use to make payments to and to make payments from. Okay, so this is an important step that we need to do once we create new bank accounts. Under the currency button over here, we have a couple of different options, just some very basic settings. So the number of days before a reminder is displayed for the expiry of the exchange rates. So we've got 5 days in there by default. I won't bother changing that for now. And we've also got a feature here which is to copy the currency code into the double entry nominal code. So that just gives you a little bit more visibility on which currency you're actually using. We then have intrastat accounting as well. So if I click into there, you can see that we can select either import or export, or both importing and exporting. So we have a slightly different features there that we can select if we are doing intrastat accounting. And then down at the bottom we have the cash VAT. So here we can see our different cash VAT periods. Now in this company that I'm using at the moment, I actually haven't selected cash VAT accounting, otherwise that is where you could go in and view your periods there. Now the next tab along is the accounting settings tab, so let's click into there. So first of all, on the left hand side, now most of these things that I'm showing you right now in this tab, you won't generally need to go in and change. I'm talking about an average user of the system. You won't really need to go in and change things. For most people it will be set up correctly, but it just gives you the extra flexibility if you should want to go and make changes to any of these. So we're going to start off a control account, and here what we've got at the top are our accounts grouped together in certain ways. So we've got all of our invoice ones, so these are all of our different invoice accounts. We can make changes if we want to. We can change the description on each of those accounts as well. So for example, if I choose customer supplier ledger, we can see we've got our debtors control account and our creditors control account. Under VAT, we've got our VAT account. Under currency, we've got our different currency accounts. So it just allows you to go in and have a look and make changes if you want to. But as I said, most of the time this will be set up correctly. We've then got journal type settings and number series. So over here we've got all of our different types of journals that we'll go through. So basically we can see there that all of our sales invoices will start with SI. All of our purchase invoices will start with PI, credit sales notes with SC, etc., etc. Okay, so for example, bank payments are going to be marked with B and then the number for the entry. Under the tab that says series of entry numbers, now this again I advise you not to really change unless there is a specific reason for you to actually change this. It allows you to go in and start by a different number if you want to. The ones in blue, the ones that are highlighted blue, cannot be changed. The reason being is that I've already started using that number series, so it's become blue, so I cannot change that. Okay, so if I had started doing this right at the beginning before entering in any data, then obviously all of those will be white and I'd be able to change those. Under the section which says layout of accounts, we can go into there and we can see where our accounts are being analyzed, and we can make changes to the description should we have any specific wording that we would like to use in our reports and things. But again, as I said, most people won't need to go into that and change those. We then have our report settings, so just a few different settings here, fairly basic and straightforward. Under our profit and loss reports, to show negative signs with brackets, show revenue figures with positive sign and expenses with negative, and then we've got the same sort of things with our balance sheet reports as well. So fairly straightforward. Again, most people won't need to go into there to actually change it. Finally, we come to the maintenance of VAT codes, and you can see that I haven't actually changed my VAT codes on this system to 15%. Now, so it's still the old VAT on here, but whichever product you start using will have the correct VAT code. Should the VAT code change again, like it is going to be changing in January for the EC VAT, it will automatically be done. You'll be sent a little file which you can just double click on, and that will make all the changes necessary for you. So you don't really need to be able to come into here and to change the VAT codes, but it does give you that extra flexibility, and you can see that there are quite a few different VAT codes. You simply double click on one and it allows you to go in and make changes. You can of course click new as well. Sorry, I've come out of that. You can of course click new onto that screen and actually create a brand new one as well. So it gives you that flexibility in order to do those different things. Under the next tab, Customer and Supplier Ledger, we have some details, some different features there that we can bring into the software, or we can remove them if we don't need them. So they're fairly straightforward. Company sends payment reminders to its customers. Company sends debt collection lists. Company exports invoices to factoring company. Company sends credit charges to its customers. And company uses remittance. So each one of those features has a little button next to it, which is a settings button for that particular feature. Now, I'm not going to run through all of those. You can go through those in your own time, but they are fairly straightforward. So, for example, the first one there, company sends payment reminders to its customers. If I click into there, we can see that we've got different features here. So things like number of payment reminders before notice of debt collection. So we can decide how many reminders we want to be able to send. And little settings like this last one here, do not send payment reminders to customers we owe money to. So things like that, you can just decide if you want to bring them into the system or not, depending on how you run your business. So those are really all the things that you need to do before you start creating your company file and actually using it. Are there any questions at this point with the setup of everything on the system with regard to accounting? currency gains and losses it doesn't work in the same way that it does in MYB. MYB uses what's known as an exchange account, which is really just a mathematical account that it uses for calculations. Mamut it works in a much more simple way in that it just works. We had a look a little while ago at our different control accounts. So there, if we have a look at our currency, we can see that we've got our foreign currency gains and losses and things like that. Okay, so Leah, those questions I'm going to have to answer later on when we actually start looking at transactions. We're talking about the setup at the moment. Any other questions relating to the setup of the things that I've spoken about? So customizing of the currency codes, customizing of the VAT codes, the ledger and things like that. I think there was a question that I missed out. James asked a question, can this handle flat rate VAT? So you're talking about the flat rate scheme. Now it's not built into the program, but it can cope with it. The best thing really to do if you are running a flat rate VAT scheme is to actually give support a call, and they'll be able to guide you as to how to just get it all set up on the system. Okay. Any other questions then on the setup of the accounting? Okay. Right, so I'm going to close these windows now and go back to the main accounting focus area. So we had talked about the three ways of entering information into the accounting system. One was through the sales, one was through the purchasing, and the other, of course, was journal entry. Now, we're going to have a look at journal entry in just a moment, but first I would just like to say that everything that is a sale will be entered in through order. When you purchase stock items, and stock items only, you will do them through the purchase order process. Other things that you purchase, for example, I don't know, electricity of your premises, your internet subscription, your telephone bill, all these different overheads and things will not be entered in through purchase. Those sorts of things will actually be entered in through journal entry. Okay, so we're going to have a look at this journal entry feature and how it actually works. So, first thing that we need to know about this screen is that it is split into two sections. We've got a top section, which is white, and then a bottom section, which is blue. And really, the top section is where we type in the journal. Okay, we can either manually type it in, or we can use some of the tools, but nonetheless, that is where the journal is entered. When we click Save at the top, once the journal is entered, what it will do is it will paste that same journal into the bottom half of that screen. Now, that still has not, at that point, been transferred to the ledger. It's simply waiting there for you to approve and to send it to the ledger. The way we send it to the ledger is this button right at the top with a little red arrow that will actually send things into the journal. So basically what that means is that you could come into this screen, enter lots of different transactions in through the top half, and transfer them down to the bottom, and transfer them all to the ledger in one go. Remember, once you've actually posted it to the ledger, you cannot make changes to it or delete it, so you need to make sure that it is correct. So this using this method of the double screen, where it transfers it to the bottom, you double check it, you then transfer it to the ledger, works quite nicely. Now, you may have noticed these big buttons across the top. These perform certain tasks that you can see labeled on them. So things like purchase invoice, sales invoice, customer receipt, supplier payment. Now you can add some other boxes on here as well. So if I just right click into that area, you can see that I can add in 3 extra boxes. So I'm actually going to choose bank payment, bank receipts. So these are just simple bank transactions that I will be doing by clicking into those buttons, and maybe I want to put in my rent there as well. Or actually, let's choose my monthly direct debits. So I click OK, and it adds in those buttons. Chris has then asked a question. I'm using Office Mini, which does not have purchase ledger. Do I use journals for purchases? Chris, that is absolutely correct. You do use the journal for purchases. I'll be showing you now how to actually use it. Leah has also asked a question. Can you use the sales invoice through here and not through the orders product management? Yes, you can do. The way that it works is almost identical actually to the other area of the program, but it allows you to do so from here as well. But there is one slight difference, Leah, is that when you use this screen to enter in sales, you cannot print an invoice. Okay, so if you want to be able to print an invoice, then you need to go to the sales section and do it through there or through the customer service section. But if you don't require an invoice, so say you're actually I don't know, a pub or something where you're just taking lots of different orders and there's no actual invoices being generated, then you could use just the journal entry screen. So we've been talking about the journal entry screen, and we've got these different buttons across the top. No, you can't print it at all if you enter it in through here. So we have these buttons across the top and how they work. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put in a purchase invoice. So I click into purchase invoice, and I'm then asked which supplier was it. So it brings up a list of my suppliers. So I choose my supplier. I then have to actually put in my invoice number. So I've got the invoice obviously in front of me, the physical invoice. So I'll just read off the invoice number. I'd obviously put in the invoice date, etc. And you can see at the bottom there, I've then got the nominal code where it's actually going to be analyzed. And this nominal code can be specified under the supplier card itself. So at the moment it's only showing materials purchased, but I can click show all nominal codes, and then it will allow me to choose a specific account. So let me see if I can choose something there. Let's choose gifts. You simply tab across to amount and you type in the amount. So I'm happy with that, so I click OK, and you see it actually does the double entry for you. I didn't have to think about whether it's going to be a debit or a credit, and you can see that it's actually crediting my actual supplier account. So that means that I can actually analyze my creditors by using only the journal entry screen. So this is the journal. I'm crediting my supplier account, my creditors account. I'm debiting my expense account, and then I've got the VAT movement on that. So I need to click save, and you can see that it's transferred down to the bottom. Now, when I want to actually do the supplier payment for this, I can do that at the same time. I'm going to do that first, then I'm going to actually transfer to the ledger. So I go to supplier payments. Actually, sorry, I have to transfer it first for it to actually realize. So I'm going to do that first. I click update ledgers over here. It's going to do all of them. You can obviously run a query and only do a certain type. I want to preview the daybook as well, so I click next. It goes ahead and shows me the journal that's being put through. So I just exit out of that. It then asks me, do I want to save the that report? So I can just save it as a PDF if I want. I'm not going to bother doing so, so I'll just click cancel. So now that's gone away and actually saved that onto the creditors. So if I actually just come out of this screen for a second and go to creditors, I can see that Nestle is there, and I can see that it's actually got that full amount there. So I'll actually be able to view my creditors even though I use the journal entry screen to be able to enter that information in. So just going back to journal entry. So that invoice which I posted onto the system for Nestle for £1,000 plus VAT, I'd like to actually pay for now. So I go to supplier payment at the top there. I choose the supplier. I then come to this window here, so then I make sure that I've got the correct date in there. I choose the bank account I want to pay from. I put in a check number if that's appropriate, and I make sure that the payment figure in the payment column is 100% accurate, as that's how much I'm actually paying, and that's what the entry is going to be. So I'm happy with that, so I click OK. It does the journal for me. So I'm debiting my supplier account and I'm crediting my bank account. So I simply click Save at the top, and I can then transfer that to financials as well by going through that same routine. So now that's been transferred. Now that invoice has been paid off. Leah's just asked a question for invoice for a customer, partial payments to different invoices and things like that. Can we do that? Yes, you can. I'll be showing you that a little bit later on, Leah. Can you stop prompting to save to PDF? James has asked. I think you can. I'll have to just check on that and come back to you, James. Just leave that with me. I'll just have a quick play with it in just a moment. Okay, so that's how we did the purchase invoice from this screen. So now let's have a look at some of the other features. Let's actually look how we can put it in a sales invoice as well. So let's click into sales invoice. We choose the company, the customer. We click OK. We put in an invoice number. You see, when you actually do sales through this section, you have to actually manually put in the invoice number, and it might not tally with your incrementing number system, because this is more like just a manual sale, which you're just putting onto the system, which doesn't need an invoice. So when Leah was asking, can you print out the invoices? No, you can't, because it's not really designed to be used for that instance, but you can use it for some certain things, like, for example, if you have takings from a store, that sort of thing. So I'm going to type in an invoice number, you put in a date, you analyze it to a particular nominal code, you put in the amount, and you click OK. It does the journal for you. I can then click Save, and maybe I want to do another sale as well, so I click New. I can then go to Sales Invoice, choose the other company, put in an invoice number for that, enter in an amount, and click OK. It does a journal for that as well, so I'll save that too, and then go to Transfer, and you'll be able to see that it's actually both of the sales that it's transferring in one go. So basically it's like a batch journal entry, if you like. So I'm going to come out of those, and that's been transferred now. We also have a bank payment and bank receipt button. Now these are really like your spend money and receive money buttons that you had in MYOB. I know many of you are from MYOB, but I know not all of you. So this bank payment, when I click into there, I'm asked for a payment amount, so let's put in an amount, 150. I then choose the expense account, so what was this for? Maybe this is for samples. I can then put in a description. So So samples of sweets, as we're running a sweet shop. You click OK. It does the journal for you, so I didn't have to think about the journal, and obviously I can then go through the same routine of transferring it. You can, of course, actually enter in a journal manually by clicking on New, clicking into the nominal code. You bring up the list. I want to look for my bank account, so it's actually called current account, isn't it? So there's current account. Tab across to credit. Then then put in a new line and choose my petty cash account. I want to debit that account. There we go. And I can then save that, so it's a simple transfer between my petty cash and bank account, and then I go and transfer those. Chris has then asked a question: after updating the ledgers, can the entry be altered? No, it can't. As soon as you click on this button here, the one with the red arrow, and you've gone through that routine, you will not be able to change the entry. You will only be able to reverse it or to post a negative to it to counteract it, but you won't be able to delete it, which is why you have this safety mechanism of sending it to the bottom half of the screen and then transferring it in a separate step. I've also got here monthly direct debits, which you can customize. So here you can see I've got several different things, like my telephone, maybe that was 175. My business insurance is always 15. 150, sorry. Rent is always 8,000. Different rates. So you just type in the different amounts. You click OK. It then goes through and does the double entry for you. Anything that hasn't been posted, will it still be considered in the ledger, which is what Leah has asked. No, it won't. Nothing will be considered in any of the reports or anything like that if it hasn't been posted. Shelley has then asked a question. I'm not sure I completely understand. You've said, what is the default? The default, what? If you could just clarify on that point, please, Shelley. On the direct debits, you mean in terms of where it's actually being analyzed? This is actually set up through the actual journal template. So I've actually got different journal templates which are set up, and you actually customize those. So the journal template for monthly direct debits is the one that I would have to edit. To get to those templates, you go to View, Accounting, and then Journal Templates down at the bottom there, so you might want to make a note of that. Once you select that, you can see your monthly direct debits. You can then click the Edit button there, and you'll be able to go through the little wizard, which allows you to go in and edit those. So at the moment you can see I've got telephone, business insurance, rent, etc. I can go in and add another one if I wanted. So if I go New, so I want amount, and let's put in internet provider. I can even put in a default value if I want. So click OK. I've got my internet provider there. Let's click Next. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 there. So the last one is the one that I've just put on. So this is being analyzed to this particular account. I can make sure that that account is the right one. It's not at the moment. It's actually going to my gas account. So I can then go and change that. Let's see. internet and email, that would be a bit more useful. So then I can click complete, and it would have updated that. It would have updated that template. So if I now go to, if I get rid of this one here, and go and click on monthly direct debits, you can now see that I've got one which is called Internet Provider. So if I go and type in an amount into there, click OK. So it's asking if all the rest should be zeros. So then it goes ahead and does the different journals, and we can see all the different accounts that it's affecting down the left-hand side there. So that way you can set up all your monthly direct debits to work quite quickly and efficiently. It will only take values for all of them. No, it won't. You just need to put in the zero figure for each one. I didn't do that the first time round, but I just rushed through it, that's why. But it will accept zeros for those. You can also make changes on the actual template, you know, when we were looking at the journal template, to specify different things like what is required, what isn't, and things like that. So you can do just one of them if you wanted. You'd have to make sure, obviously, that it was set up correctly, but it does work like that. So that's all okay, so I'm just going to transfer this. And that goes away and records itself. So really, you can see that this screen here is very, very flexible. And what it allows you to do also, which I haven't mentioned explicitly, is that we were looking at the journal template, but it allows you to create as many journal templates as you want for whatever reason. And you can see that there's a little drop down here which is journal template, and once I've created new ones I could actually select whichever one is there, and it will then bring up the details for that. So I just selected rent, and you can see that it's allowing me to put that in. I'll click cancel to that now though, but it does help speed up data entry, and it helps just in simplifying the way that you enter the information into the system. So are there any questions regarding journal entry? Leah, that question I'm just about to come on to after we look at the creditors and debtors. So I'm doing all the transactions, then I'm going to show you how you look at the activity. So I will answer that question. I know I keep putting it off, but there is a more appropriate time to show you that. Any other questions then with the journal entry screen, please? Okay, so that was the basics of the journal entry. Oh, is there another question? Chris has then asked the question, do I have to activate each monthly direct debit on the date, or will the system do it automatically? It won't record the transactions automatically. It will just simply be sitting there ready for you to click the button and enter the figures in. It won't do it automatically. You have to do it yourself. Okay, so now that we've looked at journal entry, order, and purchase, we can see that that all gets transferred to financials, and that's what we use to actually view our transactions. Just before we do that, we're going to actually have a look at our debtors and creditors. Now I'm only going to show you one of those. Let's choose debtors. but the creditors work in exactly the same way. There's no difference in how those two operate. Okay, so first of all, it shows us our different customers. So I've got my different customers here, company 1, company 2. Each one of those customers is given a balance on the right-hand side, and the breakdown of that balance, once they're highlighted, is shown below. Now, to receive money against a particular sale, so say for example this one here, we're receiving the balance of that, £2,643. So what I do is I click onto this button over here. If you can just bear with me 1 second. Sorry about that. So we were talking about that that transaction for which we want to receive the full amount. So we click on this button here, which is the receipts and payments button. It looks like a set of coins on a note. So you click into there. You can see that I'm actually receiving the full amount there into my current account. So I click OK. It tells me there's been an entry into the system, and that goes away, and it's dealt with now. So they don't owe us any money anymore. So this customer also has some money remaining, and what I want to do is I want to be able to accept partial payments, overpayments, and payments for more than one invoice. So let's see if we can do a bit of each of those different things. So first of all, I can see that it's made up of 3 different invoices. And let's assume that for the first invoice, instead of receiving £323, we actually receive £400 against that. So I highlight that that invoice. I click on the receipts and payments button, and you can see that I've got the amount there under receipt. So I can just overtype that and put in 400. Click OK, and it does the journal for me. So you can see that that 400 is now sitting there, and that there is a negative balance on that invoice. So what I can do is I can actually match that up to a particular invoice and reduce the balance of that invoice by clicking on this button here, which says Match Link there. So I can then choose to apply that against one of the other invoices. So I click OK. It then goes ahead and reduces the balance. Now, if I want to be able to accept money for more than one invoice in one go, I simply click on the receipts button, and I select which ones I want to actually receive the money for. So I'm actually receiving the full amount for the different invoices. I click OK, and it tells me there's been an entry into the journal, and now it all disappears because everything has been received. Okay, so if you have one invoice with an overpayment, you will then actually receive that balance just sitting on the account, and it will remain there until you can actually allocate it to an invoice, and you allocate it by going to that button, the link button with the dash between it. But it copes with it absolutely well. It can cope with pretty much any permutation of whatever you put into the system, whether it's an overpayment or an underpayment, or even if there isn't an invoice, you can actually create a new invoice at that point. Let me just quickly put through another sale, so I'll be able to show you. Let's do one for Mars. Okay, so there we've got the Mars account there. We can see that that's 235, but the payment that we've received isn't actually for that invoice. So what I can do is I can just click there, and it's not for this one, so I can untick that and actually click New, enter in on account or something, and actually allocate I don't know, the amount against that. So that will then put in a minus 400, which is then unmatched. I can then later on match that with the other invoice, and that leaves then £165 on the account for me to match off later on. You then asked a question, can you put it to another account, another income account? I'm not entirely sure what you mean, Leah. You can put it into any other bank account. Is that what you mean? A different bank account? To another income account? You see, we're not deciding here which income account it's going to. It's actually being determined by the actual sale. So you would then need to create a sale which would be analyzed to the income account that you want to put it to, and then match this 165 with that sale, if that makes sense. Like MYB will automatically to financial account. You mean as a finance charge? Is that what you're talking about? It won't automatically do that, no. You will have to manually do it. Yeah. Okay, so that's how both the debtors and the creditors work. Now, James has actually asked a very good question. He's asked, what is the difference between this debtors process and the bank receipt process? There is actually no difference at all. It is actually the same screen. So if I just show you that, when we go to debtors and we click on this screen, this is the default receipts payments accounts window. Now if I go into, say, the journal entry screen and do, say, customer receipt, you can see it's actually exactly the same window. Okay, so although you're going to it from a different place in the system, it is actually the same. Okay, so now that we've entered in all of our different entries, we've looked at journal entries, we've looked at sales, we've looked at purchases, we've then gone in and analyzed our debtors and our creditors, we've accepted money, we've paid off our suppliers. Now we can finally start looking for our transactions. So as you've probably guessed by now, all of that information is actually contained in financials. So you can click into there, and the way that this screen works is that all the types of transactions that you have put through on the system are shown on the left-hand side here. Sorry, in the middle bit, middle of the left. So I can just open those up. So I can see that at the moment I've only got one period in which I've got transactions. I can highlight the period there, and it shows me all the journals relating to that type of transaction, the sales invoice, or I could choose particular individual transactions to be able to view in that way. So I'm looking at my sales at the moment. I can then have a look at my purchases. You can see that my purchases I've actually got in two different periods. My sales credit notes and my bank payments. So you can open up all the different trees and view all the different information. When you're looking at the information here, you can actually just right click and go export to Excel if you want to actually view that in Excel, and it literally just pushes it out into Excel. I'll just show you that so you can have a look at it. Does that work? There we go. So you got all those details here, and unlike MYOB, which you might have come from, because I know many of you have, it actually sends it through as numbers. So if you wanted to be able to do different things like adding or writing formulas and things, it does work. So that's how we can view the transactions. That's looking at the journal list only at the moment. So we're now going to have a look into the nominal ledger. So let's click into nominal ledger down the left-hand side. Now what that shows us is, first of all, our trial balance. So these are all the nominal codes with balances on them. We can then, if we want to be able to see the details of one of those accounts, we can then simply double-click on it. It then shows us the account details, so it shows us with the periods and the opening balance and the activity. Or actually, let me select not that account. Let me select debtors control account, just because we've got slightly more information in there. We've then got the period, the opening balance, the activity, and the closing balance. I can then double click again, and then it shows me the next tab along, which is the transaction details. So there I can see by period all the different transactions affecting my debtors control account there. So the way that it works is that it literally you just click through on each one, and it goes through to the details, double click again, and then takes you through to the details there. But of course you can change each of these and actually view them from one period to the next, or for your whole entire year, depending on what you want. So Leah wants to look at an expense account. So here is an expense account, the rent expense account. So there we can see the entry number, the date, obviously the nominal code, which we've already selected at the top. We've got the VAT rate on that, and then we can see the movement on that account there, which you can see there's only 851 there, but hopefully that gives you an idea. Can you see who you paid it to? Not at this screen here, but you would just need to look at the entry number. So it's PI1, which is purchase invoice 5, sorry, PI5. So I go to journal list, I look at then PI5, which is here, and we can see the transaction for it. So we can see that it's there. Now, I didn't actually enter in anybody who I particularly paid for this particular one, which is why it's not coming up with anything, so it's probably not a good example. Just have a look. We look at this internet email one. So there we can see the details. Oh, that was on the same one actually. So then Leah's asking some more questions. It's a bit of a long way, and forget what you want by the time you get there. Is there an easier way? Not really. I mean, you obviously have the reports that you can use, and you can filter on the reports and bring up the information that you want. That would probably be the best way of actually obtaining that information. But this is just the way that the system works. It does take a little bit of getting used to, but once you've got used to it, it actually works quite well. So it's just different to what you're used to coming from MYOB. I know MYOB is very intuitive, especially in the way that the reports are drilled down and things like that. But now, you know, MYOB is gone. We're now using Mamut, so it's slightly different to our approach. But I wouldn't say it's any more difficult or anything like that. It's just different. the way that it operates, but you will get used to the way that it works. Absolutely, Leah. I mean, if you wish for certain things to be brought into the product, please, by all means, do send us through your requests or through the system, actually, and we'll be able to then help you. We'll be then able to enter in different features into the system. I'm just showing you, when you go to the Mamut Support Center in the software, you can actually go to New Queries to the Mamut Support Center. Here you can submit queries and submit errors, but here you also can enter in suggestions for improving the product, and it goes directly to the people that are concerned with research and development, so it goes to the right team. Right, so just going back to the financials then. So we had a look at journal list and the nominal ledger. We then got key figures. This is just like a really, really short report to show you your margins. It's got your margin there, your turnover, cost of sales, your gross profit, overheads, and things like that. You can manipulate this report to a certain degree, but it's really not designed to be manipulated a lot. You can do so by clicking on the button there, which is report settings, next to the word margin at the top. But really, it's not a report that's designed to be customized. It's just there to show you at a glance those figures if you need them. The same with the result as well. That's your profit and loss there. You can see by period exactly the same way that it works. Just to show you information, you can edit by clicking on the button, and exactly the same with the balance sheet as well. Just to show you at a glance. We've then got different graphs and things. So obviously, you know, my graph looks pretty rubbish at the moment as I've only been entering into one period. But you can pull off different graphs and things of that nature. You can't, Leah. Leah's asked a question here. If you can actually click on the figures and zoom in, like you can in MYOB, you can't do so here, unfortunately. Sorry, I'm not sure I understand. Next to P&L, this. There's nothing. There's nothing there. Actually, there's only one report which is being shown in that area. Is that what you meant? On periods. Yes. On periods you can, so you can look at this quarter, last quarter, you know, things of that nature. So it just allows you to customize it slightly. So, for example, now I'm just looking at the different quarters. Now I'm looking at this quarter against last quarter. So it's just to be able to bring up quick information quickly, basically. The last one there is then future cash flow, and this is actually wizard driven now because everybody works on this in a different way. I'm not actually going to run through that, but it is very, very straightforward to use. It basically guides you through the whole process, so please do feel free to have a look at it. Those of you who have come from MYOB, you'll know that the cash flow in that was pretty bad. It's actually very, very good in this system here, so please do take some time to have a play with that, maybe in the sample company, the example database, and then try it in your own data later. So that's really how financials work. It's a way to actually obtain the financial information once you've actually put it in. Yes, that's exactly right, Leah. That is where you then put your budgets and things in. That's right. Right, I've got only a few more things to show you. The next thing on the agenda is then the period end. So the period end is something that you would do at the end of each month if you wanted to close off the period. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close off January, as that was my first month. So I go to period end. It's very, very straightforward. I simply select my year, my period, click next. You won't normally get this message. This is only because I haven't entered in any opening balances or anything. It then tells me that it will no longer be possible to make entries into it, and remember that this process cannot be undone, so make sure you take a backup just before you you do a period end. You simply click complete, and it closes off that period. So now when I go back into it, it's going to close off period 2. Very, very straightforward. Right, so the next main thing that I wanted to show you was the bank reconciliation. But I think just before I do that, oh sorry, we have actually looked at everything else. So it's only the bank reconciliation which I need to show you. The other features on this banking section are actually some features which we've already looked at, but just from different areas. Are there any questions then before we move on to the bank rec? VAT returns works in the same way as it does on MYOB. It is a report that you run. So just before we move on to bank rec, I'll just show you. You go to reports, you go to accounting on the left hand side because it's an accounting report, and you simply scroll down to VAT return. There it is. You click print. It then asks you for which VAT return you want to run. So let me select this one here, click OK, and it then shows you your 9 lines as you would expect. Chris has then asked a question, how long can you go before having to close a period or a year? Now periods are not as important as years. The year, I think you can go well into the new year. I think you can almost finish the new year before you are forced to close it. But obviously it has an impact onto the reports and things if you don't close off the years. What the system actually allows you to do, and although I can't demonstrate this very well over this course, is that under, got accounting, and then we've got partially close accounts, which allows you to almost do like a dummy close of your year, and it will transfer over the figures, but it won't transfer them over set in stone. And then when you want to send over the correct figures, it will do that correctly. So what I would do is probably, if you are interested in that, Chris, is to have a read about that, probably in the help section, and it will go through that in a lot more detail. Shelley has asked, what about European sales VAT return? I'm not too certain about that, Shelley. Apart from the normal VAT return, I don't think that there's anything else that will be showing up. I know it has the EC. It has the EC boxes. Is that what you meant with the European sales VAT return? Yes, it's just a report that I ran. You see, I ran, Caroline, you asked about the breakdown. The breakdown can be shown under the VAT return details. So if I run that one, that will then show me the breakdown of each of the transactions and the amounts. Lisa is then asking a question. If I'm starting the accounts for the year, can I put all entries from January using just period, or do I have to change the system date? No, you can just put it into the particular period. As long as that period isn't closed, it will allow you to enter in that information. There'll be no problem with you doing that at all. Shelley is then asking, it's a separate VAT return on the MYB. Right, Shelley, what I'll have to do is I'll probably have to find out about that. Shelley, if you could send me an email just highlighting that, and what I'll do is I'll do a search, because it may be that I've just overlooked that, and I'll try and find out exactly where that's done. As I'm sure if it was in MYB, it will be in this program as well. Leah has then asked a question: if I migrate, will this do it automatically? The past transactions and historical data. You're talking about migrating from MYOB to Mamut. It won't actually take over all the transactions. It will take over your opening balances and things like that. But the historical data, it will remain in MYOB. Obviously, your outstanding transactions. Hello? 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 You can still hear me? Okay. Right, sorry, I lost my train of thought now. What were we talking about? The historical data. Yeah, the historical data isn't carried through. It's only the outstanding transactions which happened, which get carried through. Okay, so any other questions then before we look at the final topic, which is the bank reconciliation? Yes, I definitely do advise you to actually do the migration either at financial year end or at the end of a VAT quarter. Those would be the two best times to actually move over. You don't have to essentially wait until the financial year. It's completely up to you, but definitely VAT quarter, yes. Okay, so then there's another question from Caroline. Sorry, back to the journal entry. I'm starting Mamut as our first accounting package. I want to enter invoices that have last month's date on it, but the system will not let me put in a date before the first of the starting month. Yes, so you're talking really about your opening balances, aren't you, that you put onto the system. You will have to put those in as of the first of your period. You won't be able to put them in with historical dates on them. By the sounds of it, you've actually already started up the data file and you've started entering in the information. So you may have set it up incorrectly. I'm not sure. I can't really talk specifically about how you set it up. What I would do, Caroline, is probably give our support guys a call, and they'll be able to talk you through actually entering those details in. But you are right, you won't be able to enter them into the previous financial year. You'd have to put them in on the first date of the new financial year. Okay, but again, support will be able to talk you through that with your individual case in front of them. Okay, so any other questions then before we move on to bank rec? Right. So the bank reconciliation. Now I've clicked into the bank reconciliation screen, and up comes this window. And normally if I'd been doing bank reconciliations, it would have been showing my different reconciliations here in this list, but as this is the first time, I have to then create a brand new reconciliation. So I click onto new over here. It then asks me which bank account is it that I want to be able to do the reconciliation for. So I'm actually going to choose my current account. You click OK, and it brings up this screen. So over here, what I have to do is enter in the date on the invoice. I can then put in a reference number. So I can either put in the statement number. Sometimes you have a statement number. Sometimes you have a period or the actual period for which the statement is for. So I don't know. Put in something here. So I've just typed in the dates. You can type in what you like in the reference, and you obviously type in the closing balance of that actual invoice, of the actual bank statement. So I'm assuming I've got a bank statement in front of me. Once I've entered in that basic information, I then click on the new button, and what I have to do is I have to bring in transactions, or select the transactions that I've already put onto the system as appearing on my bank statement. So hopefully the transactions that are appearing here, I'll be able to go through and tick on the left-hand side the ones that are actually appearing on my bank statement. Once I've ticked the ones that are appearing, I click OK, and it puts them in here. Now, if there is an instance where there is not a transaction there, but there is on your actual bank statement, you will have to come out of the screen and re-enter the information, or you could just minimize the screen and go to sales and re-enter it in, then come back to the same window, and it will then appear under new again, and you'll be able to tick it and actually get that coming in. Once you've actually done your bank reconciliation, you've selected all the different items, you should hopefully then have a non-reconciled figure, which will be 0. So I'm just going to enter something in here. Oops. Sorry, my computer's being a bit strange. Right, there we go. So I've just forced my bank reconciliation to balance. Please don't actually do that with your own bank reconciliation. But you can now see that my non-reconciled figure is now 0. So that means it reconciles, which means that this button at the top is now available for me to click into to approve. It will not allow me to do so if it doesn't actually balance my reconciliation. So I can click on approve to approve the bank reconciliation. It's now been approved, and I can then come out of that screen, and now when I click into bank reconciliation, we can see that bank reconciliation which has now been done. So it's a fairly simple process to actually do the bank reconciliation, nice and easy. It allows you to close that window and go back into it, and it will remember the ones that you've ticked and brought through. But unfortunately, that window doesn't have a screen which you can enter in details from, but it is quite flexible. Any questions then on the bank reconciliation? What happens if it can't be reconciled? Well, if it doesn't reconcile and the figures don't match up, then you won't ever be able to reconcile it. So there is something that you'll have to do something in order to do the reconciliation. You'll have to do some investigation as to why it's not reconciling. There is always a reason why it doesn't reconcile. It's a very, very difficult question to answer, Shelley, because it's so broad. I mean, absolutely anything could happen to a bank reconciliation, but it won't force you or lock you out of the system or anything like that. It just won't reconcile, that's all. Any other questions? To view the unreconciled items, you actually just open up a new reconciliation, and then under the new button down there, this shows you the unreconciled items. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question, Leah. I was just looking at the question that James has now posted. Just going back to cutting from MYOB. If I need to receive a payment for an invoice raised in MYOB but paid when running Mamut, do I just do the journal entry and manually key the invoice number? You probably wouldn't need to do that, James. Because when you move over from, say, MYOB to Mamut, you will have entered in your opening balances. And your opening balances will actually include your any outstanding invoices, and they will actually be put onto your customer card. So it won't be like that. It will be simply you going to the journal entry screen and going to customer receipt and doing that same method. You will actually start using the ledger straight away. Okay, the reason being is that this journal entry screen is quite unique in the fact that you can actually post to particular customer and supplier accounts. Yes, James, you're quite right. The invoice will not be known to Mamut, but when you enter in your opening balances will have a figure on the debtors. So when somebody owes you money, there is a figure on your debtors. And when you enter that into Mamut, you'll be forced at that point to enter in the invoice details. So the system will know of those details at that point. Okay, hopefully that answers your question. Any other questions then? Okay, right. Let's just quickly move to the presentation which I was showing you. So just to let you know that there are some other courses that you can attend. We have another course this afternoon at 2 o'clock, which is the e-commerce course, which shows you how to actually create a website and a web shop, which is very, very straightforward in the software. You can literally get a decent looking website from the software that links to your accounting package in about half an hour or so, as long as you've got all the work, all the product descriptions and things like that obviously already produced. And we also have then the academy courses in London and in Manchester. So please feel free to inquire about any of those, either on the website or by giving the sales guys a call. Just a couple of other questions coming through. One from Leah. Yesterday you did a sales course and haven't received the recording. I'll make sure that the recording goes through. Okay, so thank you all very much for participating, and there is my email address on the screen right now, so please do feel free to send me any information or to ask me any questions. I'm more than happy to help out. So thank you very much, everyone. Okay, take care. Thanks.